the United States expanded the entity list again, imposing export restrictions on 28 Chinese entities on the grounds that some of these Chinese entities are related to the Iranian military. The core claim of the Americans is that sanctioning these entities is to protect the national security of the United States from threats. What I want to talk about today is what is behind the US sanctions against these companies, and my views on the future. Let's take a look at the companies that have been included in the entity list this round. Well, a total of 28 entities have been pulled from the list in this round, including 26 companies and 2 individuals. At a glance, most of them are engaged in the technology industry, and the rest are engaged in foreign trade and logistics. Specifically, after removing those foreign trade and logistics companies, the remaining companies can basically be divided into the following categories by industry: computer information network technology, marine science, and life science. Now, let's talk about them one by one. Computer information network technology, including the 4 paradigm for industrial AI, Inspur Group for servers, Jotrin Electronics for electronic component trading services, Chengdu Hongtai for cable transformers, and Lungsun Technology for chips, a national research center for parallel computers, Shanghai Ray Science for optical instruments, Wuxi Advanced Technology Research Institute for chip-related research, and Sentech Networks for Ethernet core switching chips. For marine science, there is only one, Qingdao Marine Science and Technology Pilot National Laboratory. Life sciences are mainly several enterprises of BGI Genomics Company Limited. Obviously, the core of this round of sanctions is still the most important company in the computer information network technology industry. It's just that the scope of this attack is getting bigger and bigger, and it's becoming more and more precise. In the past, it only hit key nodes like Huawei and ZTE, but now it's hitting other key nodes one by one. The attack also pointed out the direction of technological development, that is, information technology based on semiconductor technology. Take Inspur Group as an example. Intel has always been the #1 supplier of Inspur. After being included in the list of entities, Intel can no longer supply Inspur. Then China's servers, storage devices, AI solutions, cloud services, etc. will be affected. Simply put, this is a foray into the foundations of China's digital economy. In fact, a similar thing happened once in 2020. In July 2020, Intel once cut off the goods for Inspur, but soon resumed the supply, so China has passed the past few years in peace. But now under the new round of sanctions, I don't know whether China can pass it as quickly as last time. There are also the National Parallel Computing Engineering and Technology Research Center and the 7 supercomputing entities that were previously sanctioned. The United States made it clear that it aims at China's computing power system. The only fortunate thing is that China's supercomputers have been targeted by the United States very early, so they have a strong sense of self-development. They bought out the ARM architecture early on and developed new ones, so the problem is not too serious. The United States claims that China's supercomputing center helped the nuclear weapon explosion test. This is very funny. The successful development of such backward conditions back then shows that the computing power demand for nuclear explosion simulation is not that high. Obviously, this is to cut off China's development from the supply chain. The way to cut it off is to cut off the supply of all American products and American technologies, and the Chinese can no longer use American products or technologies to compete with the United States. The problem exposed by the escalation of sanctions this time is still China's old problem: key technologies and key components are controlled by others. Taking Inspur as an example, Inspur's servers have achieved the position of #2 in the world and #1 in China, but the servers need to be equipped with CPU chips, and the main supplier of Inspur's CPU chips happens to be Intel in the United States. Take a look at Inspur's financial data and feel how serious this matter is. Inspur's operating costs accounted for about 87% of the total costs, and R&D, marketing, and personnel costs together accounted for the remaining 13%. It can be seen that Inspur's money is basically spent on manufacturing products, and a large part of this part of the cost is used to purchase chips. So, it is still impossible to avoid American technology. Another noteworthy Chinese company on the list is the paradigm of AI. Recently, with the rise of ChatGPT, everyone has felt the power of AI at once. The latest progress has exceeded everyone's imagination. Just a baby, less than half a year old like ChatGPT has already extended countless tools. For example, if you combine a PDF file with ChatGPT, you can directly let it extract the core ideas of the PDF document, or let it help you find relevant information. For example, by combining an Excel spreadsheet with ChatGPT, you can directly let it help you process data and get what you need. What's behind ChatGPT? It is computing power, which is the result of stacking countless GPU chips. Behind ChatGPT are 10,000 A100 chips. The current mainstream in China is NVIDIA's subproduct A10. There are no more than 5 companies in the country with 10,000 GPUs, and only one company with 10,000 A100s. NVIDIA is an American company, so if China relies solely on NVIDIA, there will still be risks in the future. In other words, in the field of AI, is it possible that China will be sanctioned again? In general, the speed of domestic substitution in China is really about to accelerate. It is also unlikely that the Americans will cut off everything at once. After all, the prohibition of supplying Chinese companies will have an impact on American companies themselves, and the United States also needs time to play games. However, no matter how slow the internal game is, it is much faster than studying from scratch. This trend is already obvious. If China cannot produce domestic substitutes, it will be a high probability event that more and more places will be sanctioned. Everything has inertia, and it takes a lot of time for a big trend takes to form and disappear. We have always said that China is the biggest beneficiary of globalization. Globalization has been rising and developing since World War II. It has always been the mainstream international cognition. Apple in the United States, Huawei in China, Toyota in Japan, and Siemens in Germany. Everyone purchases parts and services globally. It took decades for the general trend of globalization to take shape. How long has it been since the United States engaged in anti-globalization? Not to mention whether its braking force can stop this trend. Even if it can stop, this process will take a long time. In this braking era, China will inevitably feel some bumps, which are specifically manifested in the various frequent supply cuts and the ensuing difficulties in recent years. But, no matter what, the action of braking must not last forever. The laws of physics determine that things must eventually return to a stable state. Either return to the previous globalization, or completely decouple. Each side of the Pacific Ocean is playing its own game. This is what we have mentioned many times before, the China-US dual system. That Foxconn Timing said it is impossible for China to give up its own technology industry, and it is impossible for the United States to give up its own technology status. China's domestic substitution will be completed sooner or later. When China realizes it, it is likely that both sides will form a system in the end. For China, this trend is not necessarily bad. In the past, if you want to buy CPU, whether it is China, the United States or Europe, all manufacturers will choose Intel from the United States. If you want to buy GPU, everyone will buy NVIDIA, although it seems to be globalized. In fact, everyone has no choice. But if we take a longer look at it, if the China-US dual system really takes shape, many countries will inevitably choose this technology system dominated by China, just like the stories that happened in the fields of engineering equipment, railways, and communications. Well, thanks for your listening, and please be free to put your comments below and share your insightful ideas. I am Tech Teller, the person to tell you the opinions that are worth spreading every day. Your precious time with us is highly appreciated. See you.